Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Amy. I am mum to two boys and happen to really love books. So if you want to watch videos about motherhood and reading, but mostly about reading, then please stick around, consider subscribing, it would really mean a lot. This video has been put off so many times. It's my March wrap up in this video, and I was supposed to film it last week, but we got the stomach bug from hell. I wouldn't even wish it on my worst enemy. It was absolutely awful. We had Easter, and we spent most of it being sick, so it was just absolutely disgusting. That was the day I was supposed to film, ended up getting sick, and it was just horrendous. So I have a free house right now. I say a free house. The baby is asleep for the night. And Tom and Teddy, my oldest, have gone out to his granddad's for dinner. So it's currently 6:30 and I am going to try and film this video because next week I am not going to get a chance to, because it's still the Easter holidays here in the UK and I have no time to do anything other than be there for the boys. So I'm making the most of this pocket of time and filming now. But I feel good, the sun is out, I feel so happy now. The clocks have changed and, you know, it's getting lighter. So it's staying so much lighter for so much longer. The sun is shining, the birds are still singing, and it just makes me so happy. But also, if I do seem a bit pained in this video, it's because yesterday I got tattooed. I had a full day session with my all-time favourite tattoo artist, Alice, and it was a painful yet amazing experience. I haven't seen her for quite a long time, so it was great to catch up. But I had 3 separate tattoos done. I've got one on my leg, and then I have these 2 on my arm. So this one is healed. I got this 3 years ago. I got these little birdies added onto this one, and then this design here. So I'm absolutely obsessed with them, but the one on my leg is absolutely killing me, and I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor. So yeah, I'm in a little bit of pain. They're feeling a little bit tender today, but I'm gonna get on with this video. So let's jump into my March wrap up. Yeah, none of the books I read were under 4 stars, which is absolutely crazy. I absolutely love that. It's been my best reading month. So let's go through my Storygraph statistics for March. So in March I read 5 books equal to 1,745 pages. Moods were adventurous, dark, hopeful, emotional, mysterious, light-hearted and funny. 100% medium paced. I read 4 books that were 300 to 499 pages and 1 that was 500 plus. So it was 100% fiction this month. I read no non-fiction at all in March. Genres: fantasy, YA, historical, LGBTQIA+, thriller, romance, literary and horror. I read 3 digital. I got 3 arcs this month, which is brilliant. I loved all of them, and again I'll obviously go through them in this video. And 2 actual print books. And my average rating was 4.5 stars. What a month. What an absolute cracker of a month. So let's jump into all the books I read in March, because it's been such a fabulous month and I can't wait to talk about all these books. Now this book I'm going to open with, best book of the year so far for me. This book, I was a bit intimidated because it's got quite a high page count, and at the time I was a bit like, because I do get quite intimidated by longer books, but I thought, no, I'll give it a go. I got it from the library, but I'm going to be getting a special edition copy of this because I was absolutely blown away, and it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Oh my god, this book made me feel so many things and I want to reread it again. It's one of those books I wish I could read again for the first time, because I still think about Addie and Henry to this day, and it's been pretty much a month since I read it. So, it made me cry, the ending. And it's not because it was... I don't want to give any spoilers, but it wasn't the ending I was expecting, and it made me feel so frustrated and so upset. But I will let you guys read it, but I'll give you a quick rundown of all the books that I've read. So, in 1700s France, Adeline decides to run away from her wedding. She is born into a well-known family in this little town in France, and she decides, no, I don't want to be a wife and have children. I want to go and make my own path. So she runs away from her wedding, and she ends up meeting a demon in the forest, and she makes a deal with this demon where she basically agrees to live forever until she gets sick of it. And she makes that deal with the demon, but she keeps saying, no, I'm not ready, and the demon gets more and more frustrated with her. And part of that deal is that everyone she meets forgets her. They like when they see her, they think, oh, I've seen you somewhere before, but they never remember who she is. And she takes that in her stride. She, you know, steals clothes because she knows that she'll never get caught. She has multiple sexual relationships with people because she knows that they won't remember who she is. And she takes that and uses it to her advantage until one day she goes into a little bookshop in modern day New York, and she meets Henry, who does not forget who she is. She steals a book from this bookshop and he remembers her, and they form a relationship, surprisingly. And then it turns out that Henry has made a deal of his own, and they have to work together as a couple. And it's just such a tough read. Seeing their relationship blossom was one of the highlights of my month. It was just an absolutely stunning book, and like I said, I'm going to be picking up the special edition of it with the sprayed edges, but this book just made me feel some feelings and I'm still not okay with it. But if you want a book that will just blow you away, you know, the writing is so elegant, and you know, it's, I wouldn't say whimsical, but very descriptive, but not too much. It's just a perfect amount of fancy, I would say, but it was just absolutely fantastic, and I would recommend it to anybody. So the next book I read was actually an ARC that I got through NetGalley, and it is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. I rated this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I did get confused at certain points. So this is a horror novel, like horror, ghost story kind of novel. I really enjoyed it, but like I said, there were times where I did get a bit confused with the storyline. So we follow Anna, and she's basically the black sheep of her family. She is the one who rebelled, and her parents aren't the biggest fans of her, neither is her sister. She has a twin brother as well, and he went off with his boyfriend to go and live with him, so they kind of lost their twin connection, and she's just not very well liked. But they always have a vacation, so they've decided to go to Italy, and they've rented out a place called Villa Tacola, but it seems to absolutely terrify the locals. No local person wants to go near it. They get dropped off at the end of a really windy road because the drivers and the locals do not want to go near it. But the driver who drops Anna off warns her to never open the tower door. And her and her twin brother get up to some mischief, and they decide to open the door. Very, very stupid, I know. But they end up invoking and waking up a spirit called La Dama, and basically tries to make the whole family go insane and tear the family apart. And that is the main premise of the book, and I was on the edge of my seat reading this book. It's not very long, and there's suspense packed in those pages. It was a bit confusing because it doesn't just focus on their time at Villa Tocola. It also follows Anna when she decides to go home back to New York and all the events that happen there as well, which I did find a bit confusing at times, but I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I will definitely read some more of Jennifer Thorne's work if I ever get the chance to. But yeah, I've fully enjoyed this book. Next is another arc. Like I said, I got 3 arcs this month, which I'm super grateful for, to NetGalley for letting me, and to the authors as well for letting me get early access to these books and to read them digitally. But the next one is Call Forth the Fox by Marcel Grabo, I think Grabo. I rated this 4.5 stars. This was cottagecore in a book. It was so cozy. It was like sitting by the fire and having a warm cup of tea. It was just, it wasn't perfection. There were definitely some issues with the book, but there were issues that didn't bother me, really. Like, I could easily put those aside. That's the only reason why I knocked it down 0.5 star. If those tiny little issues had been resolved, it would have been a 5-star read easily. But we follow Roisin, or Ro, who lives with her sister Eowyn in a remote part of the forest, and one day while Ro is out foraging, because their mother has gone to a different part of town to try and get an opportunity to better all their lives, but Ro and Eowyn have stayed in the cottage that they used to live in until their mother comes back and calls for them. Or I think they have until the end of winter, I think, to decide whether they want to stay or they want to leave, and then they will go and meet their mother in the new town. But one day Ro is out foraging in the forest and she comes across a fox, and she's immediately drawn to this fox and she follows it all the way through the forest, and then she ends up coming face to face with a grizzly bear. As expected, Ro is absolutely terrified, as I think anyone would be if they came face to face with a grizzly bear in the forest. But Eowyn ends up attacking the bear, and the bear transforms into a boy. So Eowyn decides that she is going to heal the boy rather than kill him, and they find out that he is called Brend. He can't remember who he is. All he knows is that his name is Brend. He can't remember where he came from, you know, what family he's part of. So he's obviously cursed somehow because he can turn into a bear and back again. So Eowyn and Ro do decide to help him find out why he is cursed and how they can break it. And it involves Fae, the Fae realm. It's just fantasy cottagecore. It was just such a pleasure to read. The writing was whimsical. It was just, it describes like all the seasons, and you know, there were suspenseful moments in this book. It was not what I was expecting, and I absolutely loved it. It was just so cozy. Yeah, there were moments of suspense, but just the cozy moments. They were written so beautifully, like them all sitting by the fire, eating, drinking, you know, huddling together to keep warm. It was just absolute coziness in a little book, and it was just absolutely fantastic. So the next book is actually the only physical copy of a book I have for March. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue I loaned from the library, but I will be getting a physical copy of that because I loved it so much. But the next book I read was The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. I rated this 5 stars. I loved it. There is a third book coming out. It is a trilogy, and I do have the second book, which is The Hunting Moon, I believe. I want to have a little bit of a break between the two because I want to read
all 3 of them, and I don't think the 3rd one comes out till October, and I can't remember the name of that one, but that will be on one of my TBR lists. But this gave me, I've never watched The Hunger Games, I've never read The Hunger Games, I know, please don't come at me, but this did give me like the Hunger Games kind of trials vibes. There are trials in this book, which is why it gave me such Hunger Games vibes. But I love this book. It's dark, it's gothic, it's got nightmares in it, and I just loved it. So we follow Winnie Wednesday, and she's currently shunned from the Luminaries with her mum and her brother because her dad ended up being part of a rival clan and was feeding information to the rival clan from the Luminaries. So the whole family was shunned. But on her 16th birthday, she decides to take part in the Luminary trials, the Luminary Hunter trials, because there's no rules saying that an outcast can't take part. There are no rules saying that she can't. So she decides to, because that would restore her family name. It would mean that they are welcomed back into the Luminaries. And she wins the first trial, where everyone thinks she killed a banshee, but it turns out she didn't. She thinks that there was some extraterrestrial force or external force helping her to kill the banshee, but she keeps up this lie so she can keep going with the Luminary trials, because she thinks that if she gets found out that she would have no chance. So she decides to train, and she decides to get one of her ex-best friends to help her do that, because he is one of the best physical trainers in the Luminaries. So she decides to do that, and it explores, being shunned and prejudiced because of something that wasn't your fault. It explores trying to rebuild those relationships. And the cool thing about this book is there are nightmares that live in this forest. So it's based in a place called Hemlock Falls, and there's the map at the front. But it talks about different creatures in the book, like banshees and basilisks. But they include pictures from a book called The Nightmare Compendium, which is where you learn about all the nightmares, all the creatures that you can find in the forest. And it was just an absolutely fantastic read. I was on the edge of my seat for a lot of this, and I just felt so empathetic for Wednesday, and I felt very sympathetic towards her, and I felt it's just so sad that she got shunned and her whole family got shunned because of something that wasn't even her fault. It made me feel so mad that can sometimes happen in some societies. And I was rooting for her the entire book, even though she was telling some fibs. It didn't matter to me. I was rooting for her the entire time, because she's like this little geeky, non-typical heroine, and I absolutely love that, and I'm really, really excited to read the second one. Next was another arc, and it was Empire of Shadows by Jacqueline Benson. I rated this 4 stars. There were some issues with this book, and it was very long. It is 400 odd pages. Well, I say very long. I still need to read Crescent City, and I know that the last book is like 900 odd pages. So it's definitely not like the longest book ever. But as I said, I do get intimidated by longer books sometimes. There were moments in this book where I was feeling like I was trudging through it. But imagine if Indiana Jones, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, imagine if all 3 of those had a baby and put it in a book. This is it. And on the whole, I really, really enjoyed this book. But again, there were just some issues. And I felt like there were some chapters that just didn't need to be there. There were some characters that didn't add anything to the story. They were just there to fluff the story out. And I don't think they were necessarily needed. And some parts of the book weren't necessarily needed. Like there was a spicy scene that didn't need to be there. I didn't think it added anything to the main character's relationship. But on the whole, I did enjoy the adventure aspect of it. And it did remind me very much of the relationship between Rick and Evie in the original Mummy film from 1999. And that did make me laugh. There were moments in this book where I did laugh out loud at the remarks they would make to each other. So I really love the character development. Will I read the second one? There is a second book. This is called the Raiders of the Arcana series. Will I read the second book? Possibly. If the issues that were addressed in the first book can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Repaired, sort of, in the second book, then maybe I might consider reading it. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. So we follow Eleonora, or Ellie, and she's plummeted into this world of action. After getting arrested for being part of the suffragette movement, she decides to chain herself to the gates of the Houses of Parliament. Now, back then, this is set in very early 1900s England. And at the time, it was very, very, very uncommon for women to have jobs. But Ellie has one in, I think it's some kind of bureau, like historical society, and she sorts out documents. But she is very interested in history. She went to university and studied history, which was very rare for a lady back then. So she gets fired from her job for being part of the suffragette movement, but she ends up stealing an artifact from her old boss, because she thinks it's going to get into the wrong hands. So she takes it from her boss's desk, and then hears a commotion coming from her boss's office after she has started to walk out. And there is another very nasty man after it. So she decides to do a bit more research, and that research takes her to the British Honduras, where she meets an amateur cartographer named Adam Bates. And they decide to unexpectedly try and find where this artifact has come from and the secret of this mysterious artifact. And they go on this little adventure together. I say little adventure, they end up going over a waterfall. But it was a very, very good read. There were just some issues that did bug me a little bit, like unnecessary characters, unnecessary chapters, unnecessary spice. There didn't need to be any spice in this book, I don't think. It just felt very out of place. But I did enjoy it nonetheless. I loved the adventure aspect and watching the relationship bloom between Ellie and Adam. That was very enjoyable. It was a very, very good reading month. I think with some of them I was being a bit nitpicky with some of the comments that I made, but obviously with NetGalley, with them being arcs, I do have to put an honest review out. So I feel like I was quite fair with the ratings that I gave, but this has been a great reading month. I don't think anything will top Addie LaRue for a while. I think I'm going to have to be blown away, and I have been in a bit of a reading slump. We're now on the 7th of April, and I've read one arc, and I'm currently reading a book currently, but I think this month is just going to be a bit slower. I am ahead on my reading goal of 50 books for the end of the year, so I am going to allow myself to take it a bit slower than usual. But yeah, this has been an absolutely fabulous reading month, and I'm very excited to see what I end up reading in April. So yeah, if you guys have enjoyed, then please consider subscribing. It would be absolutely fabulous to have you here, and give this video a like if you liked it and want to see more. So with all that being said, I'm going to enjoy this sunshine while I edit this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.